Morning, everybody. Carolina Jackpot Time checking in. It's Thursday morning, November 2nd, 2017. I'm going to do part one of my college football picks and predictions video for week number 10, the weekend of November the 4th, 2017. I'm actually doing it from my vehicle this morning on the way to work. I'm working a lot of hours this week, so it's been hard to get to be able to sit down and do it at home, so here we are. I do it every week, and I deliver once again. Alright, tonight's games, there have been a few games this week, actually. I think 3 or 4 games already this week in the MAC conference. If y'all have watched some of those, been some halfway decent football on there. The most exciting thing about watching MAC games really is if you see some good coaches on there, it's a good bet in 3 or 4 years you might see them at some of your Power 5 schools. If they're coaching a MAC team and they're not successful, they may be somewhere as someone's assistant running back coach in 4 or 5 years. Alright, Navy at Temple. That's the game tonight, actually, I believe. 8.5 point favorite. Navy is on the road at Temple. I'm going to look for Navy to cover the spread in this game and beat Temple by more than 8.5 points. Temple is not a very good football team. However, they have improved somewhat past few weeks. Just probably not enough. Tomorrow night, you have Memphis on the road at Tulsa. Memphis is 7-1. Tulsa has won maybe 2 games, I believe. I have my stats right in front of me. They're not a very good football team. Memphis is only a 12-point favorite on the road there. Look for them to cover that spread. I think that they're going to throttle Tulsa and run them out of their own stadium. Saturday's early games. We start with Florida. The Gators on the road at Missouri. Missouri is actually a 3-point favorite in this game over the Florida Gators. I don't think anyone would have seen that one coming. Florida, oof, boy, what a dumpster fire that place has become. Coach is gone. A lot of times, though, when you get a new coach and, or interim coach taking over a program, they kind of get a little bit of a adrenaline boost. They come out there and really play well first game or so. I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see them being able to. I don't see them being able to muster up enough offense to beat Florida. Beat Missouri or score on them very much. And we all know Missouri can put up a lot of points. Missouri's put up a ton of points the past couple of weeks. Albeit they played UConn and Idaho were the 2 opponents, but still, I don't see Florida being able to score enough here to keep up with them. I'm gonna look for Missouri to cover the spread, win this game, and leave Florida still with just the 1 SEC victory so far this year. Western Kentucky is on the road at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's a 10-point favorite at home. I'm going to look for the Commodores to cover that spread. Looking over Western Kentucky's season and their stats, they have not been that impressive. Vanderbilt, winless in the SEC, but you got to look at the competition. That Vanderbilt's played a tough schedule. They really have. Probably one of the toughest in the country. I don't know of, there's nobody, I don't think, that's played 2 playoff teams, or 2 of the top 4 playoff teams so far yet, except for Vanderbilt. Now, they did get smashed by both. Actually, Tennessee has. I take that back. They got smashed by both Georgia and Alabama, but I still think they're light years better than Western Kentucky is this year. Western Kentucky's had some moderate success in the past, but this is not the Western Kentucky of Jeff Brom. This is the Western Kentucky of today, and I just don't see them being able to hang with Vanderbilt. I thought that Middle Tennessee State was going to give Vanderbilt a tough time at the beginning of the season, and that didn't pan out, and I don't see this panning out either. Vanderbilt wins at home easily. Indiana on the road at Wisconsin. Actually, it's in Bloomington, Indiana. Wisconsin's on the road at Indiana. Wisconsin, undefeated, did not sniff the top four, the college football playoff picture, with good reason. Their schedule is just not very good. It's very, very mediocre, and quite frankly, most teams that are anywhere just a little bit above average would probably be undefeated with that schedule. And also, if you look at the scores of the games they've played, they haven't really blown any of these teams out. They blew out BYU at the beginning of the year, but that's about it. I mean, all the rest of them have been 10, 14 points or so. 14-point win against Illinois, like an 8-point win against Purdue at home. They're just not that impressive. Indiana does not have a great record, but all it seems like they do is play close games. They play close games against people. They play Michigan, close game, and several others. So I am going to look here, the 12.5-point spread. I want to look for the Hoosiers to cover that spread. I don't think that they're going to win, but if they do, I wouldn't be at all surprised by it. Indiana covers the spread at home against the Wisconsin Badgers. Syracuse on the road at Florida State. Florida State's a 5-point favorite at home. FSU, people continue to pick them as a favorite, even though they've been totally just it's unbelievable this year how bad they've been. I'm going to look for them to finally snap out of that funk this week and cover the spread against Syracuse. Now, it's entirely possible that they don't. It's entirely possible that team is just altogether given up. Syracuse has played some inspired football, it seems like, the past few weeks. Last time out, we're off last week. Previous game that they played after their upset of Clemson Friday night a few weeks ago in Syracuse, they played Miami, lost 27-19 at Miami. However, at Miami, I will talk about them a little bit later. They're somewhere, they're like Wisconsin, pretty much. They're just not playing a very good schedule right now, and they're not really beating anybody by any impressive margins. So, who knows if that victory was, or that close loss, by Syracuse was really that impressive. I am going to look for Florida State to cover the spread here. I think they're going to win this game by about a touchdown, which is what they beat Duke and Wake Forest by. Both those teams they were able to cover spreads against and beat by about a touchdown. And I think Syracuse is about on the level of Duke and Wake Forest. Actually, they may be a little bit of a notch below Wake Forest, to be honest with you. We'll find out. They play here in a couple weeks. Northwestern on the road at Nebraska. Northwestern's actually a 1-point underdog on the road at Nebraska. This is one that I can't really figure out. Northwestern's been playing pretty good the past few weeks. They have a victory over Michigan State. They also have a victory over Iowa. So I'm going to look for them there to also on the road against Maryland, 37-21, about 3 weeks ago. I'm going to look for them to cover the spread against Nebraska. 1 point, take the Northwestern Wildcats to win that game in Lincoln, Nebraska. Boy, you never would have heard anybody say that about 15 years ago, would you? Maryland on the road at Rutgers. They are 2.5-point underdogs. Scarlet Knights favored at home against No, excuse me. I'm sorry, reading that wrong. Maryland is on the road against Rutgers. Maryland is 2.5-point favorite on the road at Rutgers. I'm going to look for this one, the Scarlet Knights. I'm going to look for them to cover the spread. I think they're going to win that game. They did beat Purdue at home. I think Purdue is a much better football team than Maryland is right now. Rutgers, it seems like they play well on their home field there, and I think they'll cover the spread there, take down the Turtles in Piscataway, New Jersey on Saturday afternoon. Look for Rutgers to take the win on that one. Wake Forest is on the road at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is 14-point favorites. Wake Forest has looked pretty good this year. Not gonna lie, the quarterback made some plays, and they've hung around with some teams. I just don't see 14 points. That's not a lot when you look at what Notre Dame's been doing the past few weeks to teams. USC 49-14. NC State, which we thought was going to be a really tight game, they blew them out. It was 35-14. I don't see Wake Forest being as good as either one of those teams. I think Notre Dame's going to cover the spread there, 14. I see them winning this game by about 28 points. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think Wake Forest will keep it close in the beginning. This may be a closer game going into halftime, but as I've said before, Wake Forest just seems to struggle against higher level teams. They struggle against higher level teams in the ACC when they play them, and no difference when they go out of conference. They just don't have the depth to keep up with teams like Notre Dame. They may be able to punch them in the mouth for a quarter or so, but they just can't hang around much longer than that. They just don't have the players to get it done. Final game of part number 1. Clemson is on the road at NC State. Clemson is 7-point favorites on the road at State. Pains me to say this, but I think the Tigers, who came out this week ranked number 4 in the first playoff poll, 4th team, the last team in the playoffs. I'll look for them to cover the spread here. I think they're probably about 10 or 12 points better than NC State, honestly. And, it could develop into something even worse than that. NC State kind of, had a good season going on there, and they still do. They're still going to make a decent bowl game. They're still ranked, but I think they kind of got exposed a little bit last week at Notre Dame. I think they could have some talent and depth issues there. The NC State, the secondary, you watch them, they're not very good. And I think Clemson might be able to open that up a little bit on Saturday and expose them just a little bit. One of their running back, Nakeem, I don't know his first name, Hines, his last name. He's injured, and I don't know. I've heard he may not play in that game Saturday, so that could also have an effect on that Wolfpack offensive attack. They're not. It's another team. They're not that deep. What they do have is talented Jalen Samuels, the quarterback, Ryan Finley. Could give Clemson some problems. They could give them some problems. This is probably being real. Probably going to be their stiffest test left on their schedule. They got Citadel left, Florida State, who we all know is just awful, and my Gamecocks. So I don't really know how all that's going to play out. They got my Gamecocks in Columbia. They obviously think they're going to blow us out because it was a 56-7 game last year. However, this ain't last year, and South Carolina's playing a lot better football than they were then. So, but as it were, on paper, you would think this is their stiffest test left of the season. I think the Tigers are going to pass it. I think they beat NC State by about 10 points or so. in Raleigh on Saturday afternoon. And that is the end of part 1 of my picks and predictions. Part number 2 will be coming up later on this evening. Appreciate it. Peace, and I am out. Go Gamecocks.